So far, we've explored the economic problem, the idea that we're trying to make ourselves as happy as possible, but we have scarce resources with which to do it, and so we want to be as efficient as possible with those resources. In this screencast, we're going to look at different types of economic systems, different ways that societies have tried to address this problem. This will be a little introduction to it, and then in the next screencast, we'll look a little bit more closely at the kind of system that we actually have. I like to show this picture at the outset. See if you can guess what this is a picture of. It's actually a photograph taken from a satellite of the peninsula of North and South Korea. Now, if you look at that blue line that separates the light part from the dark part, that's the separation between North and South Korea. And this to me is the best little example of how big an impact it can make, depending on the type of economic system you adopt. Because, up until relatively recently in history, the Koreans were one people, one language, one culture. They ate the same food, they had the same kind of religions. Pretty much everything was exactly the same. Then the Korean conflict breaks out. They separate into the communist north and the capitalist south. And you can actually see the results from space. The south is lighter. They have more economic development. Martians can see the difference that an economic system can make. So let's start looking at some of the different types of economic systems. The first type is called the traditional system. Think Amish people or think tribes in the South Pacific Islands. In this kind of system, they try to address the problem of economics. How do we make the most happiness given the resources we have? By basically answering the question by saying, well, however we always did it, whatever we did last year or 100 years ago, that's what we should do this year. Not too important in terms of our analysis. The second basic type of economic system is called a command system. In a command system, it's the government that makes most of the decisions. What we produce, how we produce them, who gets the goods, that kind of stuff. There aren't a lot of pure command systems left. North Vietnam, maybe Cuba, but even those are kind of starting to go more and more free market as we go. I shouldn't have said North Vietnam, just Vietnam. The third kind of system, and the kind of system that we have, is called the market system, sometimes called the free market system. In its most extreme form, we call it pure capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism, which means that the government doesn't make any decisions. It's all up to individuals and businesses and whatever the market decides. Now, there aren't really any pure capitalist systems out there, including ours. We have a mixed system, where most decisions are made by individuals, but some decisions are made by the government. And different countries pick different mixes of this. If you go to Europe, they'll have a little bit more government decision making. Go to a place like Hong Kong, at least until recently, and they had even more of a free market system than we do. All right, so I want to introduce you to what's called the circular flow model, which is essentially a model, a simplistic model that tries to describe how market systems operate. In this model, there are two entities. There are businesses and there are households. We're kind of ignoring the government for now. Businesses, that's Target, Amazon.com, whatever. Households, that's us, that's people. And the idea is that these two entities interact with each other in two different markets called the resource market and the product market. The product market is where we go to buy things, where households are the buyers and businesses are the sellers. So you go to Target to buy a toothbrush, you order something on Amazon.com. Any place that a household is buying something we call a product market. A resource market is where businesses go to get the resources they need to produce the products that they eventually sell us. In the resource market, it's the households that are the sellers, because in a capitalist system, it's households that own all the resources. We own our own labor. We're not slaves. We own the land. We own the capital. We have the entrepreneurial ability. And if businesses want to use that stuff, they have to pay us for it. They have to buy it from us. Now, the resource market and product market can be physical places, like the job fair might be a physical resource market. They could be just purely intellectual places or online. They don't have to be physical. So the idea is that we sell our resources, our land, our labor, our capital. We go and work, right, for various companies. We sell our resources to businesses in the resource market. They take those resources, they put them together in a certain way, and they create products out of them, and they sell it to us in the product market. Now, in exchange for those resources, we get those payments. And remember, we gave names to those payments. If you want my land, you have to pay me rent. If you want my labor, you have to pay me wages. And this is how households get the money that they use to buy stuff later on. Down in the product market, those businesses take those resources, turn them into goods and services, and sell them to us. And of course, we have to pay for them. We can't just run out of the stores with them. And that's where the businesses get the money to pay us when they buy our resources. So you'll notice why it's called the circular flow model. What goes around comes around. We sell our resources, we get money from those resources, we turn around and buy products in the product market. That's where the businesses are getting the money to pay for those resources. What goes around pretty much comes around in this kind of model. All right, so let's talk a little bit more specifically about market systems. One characteristic about market systems that differentiates it from command systems is the idea of private property, the idea that individuals and not just the government can own things. And that has important consequences. If you're sitting at your desk at home, I challenge you to take your hand, reach underneath your desk, and just feel around a little bit. No problem, right? What if you were in class and I asked you to do the same thing? Shut your eyes, take your hand, reach underneath the desk, and just feel around. In my experience, not a lot of people do it. There's a reason for that. You own your desk at home. You don't own the desk at school. And as a result of that, you don't really treat the desk at school quite as well. You're probably going to find gum at best at the desk at school, maybe not so much at your desk at home. Second characteristic, freedom of enterprise and choice. We decide what it is that we want to do when we grow up. We decide what it is we want to buy. We decide what products to purchase, what products to produce. The government doesn't decide those things. Now, of course, that's still limited. There's things you can't buy. You can't buy marijuana unless you're in Denver and have a headache. You can't buy a prostitute unless you're in certain parts of Nevada. But for the most part, we have freedom of enterprise. We can produce what we want, freedom of choice. We can buy what we want. Third, role of self-interest. In market systems, we're each trying to maximize our own self-interest. And the idea is that if that occurs, then society as a whole will maximize its self-interest or its happiness. Fourth, the idea of competition. Now, in order to have competition, you need large numbers of producers, you need large numbers of consumers, and you need free entry and exit. What that means is that it's got to be easy to get into businesses, it's got to be easy to leave businesses if you want to leave those businesses. And a lot of command systems don't have this. They'll have car companies run by the government, for example, that just produce crappy cars and lose money year after year after year, but since they have no competition, they go on forever. Not so in a market system. Okay, other characteristics of market systems, the rationing function of prices. In command systems, they decide who gets the goods and services based on what the government thinks, who the government thinks that should get goods and services. Not so in a free market system. In a free market system, we ration goods and services based on price. Businesses put a price tag on goods and services, and if you're willing to pay that price, you get it. And if you're not willing or unable to pay that price, you don't get it. In market systems, we have active but limited government. Limited is important. We don't have a government that makes every decision for us. The government gets to decide lets us decide lots of things. That said, we still have an active government. The government's still coming in and making sure that the meat isn't rotten, making sure that safety standards are being followed in businesses, etc. We also have a strong reliance on technology and capital goods. There's a reason that in the United States, when we want to build a bridge, we hire like 10 workers and we get a bunch of cranes. In less developed countries, they'll hire 1,000 workers with shovels. Market systems tend to focus on technology and capital goods. Okay, another characteristic of market systems is specialization. The idea that we don't try to do everything for ourselves. We focus on one or two things that we're theoretically good at, and we buy the rest of the products from other people. So I don't try to produce my own car. I don't try to create my own computer. I do what I'm theoretically best at, make money from that, and buy other things. Now that works out because different people are good at doing different things. I am not in the NBA, and there's a good reason for it. The second reason specialization is good is because the more you do something, the better you get at it. Theoretically, if I just keep on teaching, I'll become a better and better teacher. But maybe you know some older teachers that hasn't worked out for. All right, so let me give you an example of specialization. Let's say there's a lawyer named Tina who types 100 words a minute, which is really fast. She's got something to type that's going to take her 2 hours to type. Let's say she also charges $300 when she works as a lawyer, but she can't charge for her time typing. There's another person, Tom, who's an actual typist. He types 50 words a minute, and he charges $100 an hour for his time. Tina's a better lawyer, obviously, because she's a lawyer and Tom's not. Notice that in this example, she's also a better typist. She types twice as fast. Here's the question. If Tina has something to type that's going to take her 2 hours to type, should she hire Tom to do it or type it herself? Pause, think about it, calculate. All right, the answer is that even though Tina's a better typist than Tom, she should still hire him to do the typing, because she's going to be $200 better off if she does. In other words, specialization, even if you're better at everything, will still lead to gains for you because you could focus on what you're absolutely best at and purchase the other things that you don't need. If you didn't follow that example, come in and I'll work your way through it. So, as the picture suggests, some people are orchestra conductors, some people enjoy ham, some people like to be doctors, right? Different people do different things. The division of labor in market systems can make everybody better off. Last characteristic of market systems that kind of differentiate them, at least from traditional systems, the use of money. Money is a medium of exchange, a way to buy and sell things. And money has this very important quality, which is that it avoids the problem known as the coincidence of wants. In a barter economy, an economy where you have to trade things, if I have a pen and you have a chair, if I want your chair, I have to hope that you want a pen. And if you want my pen, you have to hope that I want a chair. We have to coincidentally want what the other person has. With money, that problem is avoided. If I want your chair, I can simply pay you money for it. And if you don't want my pen, you're still going to want my money. All right, those are some basic characteristics of market systems. In the next screencast, we'll get into more specifics about how market systems work as opposed to the other two kinds of systems.
All right, so here is the chicken you'll be enjoying tonight.
You have this information. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. His name was Colin. Here are his papers, okay?
That's great. He looks like a happy little guy who runs around.